So I just wanted to introduce you all first. Nicola Huet, who was previously at Sweaty Betty. She has a lot of experience in e-commerce going back many years. She is an independent consultant today. Gregor, we already know from Finisterre. Katie, who is an independent consultant, but formerly working for All About Brown on the e-commerce side. And Alex from VOGA, which is the furniture, online furniture retailer. And they aggregate all sorts of independent designers and furniture designs and so on. So there's some very different, they've all had some very different challenges around retention. And I suppose the first question I wanted to start with, and maybe I won't start with Gregor because we've kind of heard from him a bit on this particular topic. But it's trying to, and in your case, Nicola, maybe you could talk a bit about your experience at Sweaty Betty. But you know, what does customer retention look like in terms of the strategy you had in place when you were at Sweaty Betty, and who sort of owned that space? Who was responsible for customer retention?
So the ownership of customer retention and acquisition was very much sat within marketing, which was separate from e-commerce and separate from retail, but obviously everyone was very involved in both retention and acquisition. So it sat with that team, and within that team we had a digital and a direct. So Sweaty Betty did a lot, or still does, a lot of direct activity. And I would say we were almost more sophisticated in how we went about our direct mailing, which was catalogues as well as other things, than we were with email. Email was a big program. We did have a program very similar to yours with we called it a welcome and a nursery, a welcome and a nursery program to try and get both new customers, existing customers, repeat, exactly the same as you had. One of the successful things that we had in terms of reactivation on your dormant customers was actually a direct mail piece. And one of the things Sweaty Betty decided a few years ago was that we were going to stop all promotions, all discounts. That made the certain channels quite challenging, particularly affiliates. But so we decided to do that, but with the exception of reactivation. And we did a direct mail piece where we did give a set amount, I think it was even £15 to spend, no threshold, and free delivery, and that reactivated a lot of customers. I think we had sort of anything between 10 and 15% response rate, which, if you know anything about direct mail catalogues, that is incredibly high. So we did use that well, and also email. But email, I would say there was a challenge to measure it as accurately as we could on direct mail.
Thank you. Maybe I could pass on to Katie, and again, maybe speak of your time a bit at All About Brown, and maybe if you do it any differently now for a retailer, how you would set it up.
So I started in CRM at All About Brown, and one of the interesting things that I learned while I was there, I was very much into the data and what was going on online, and I went to one of our company events and started speaking to some of the retail store managers. And the insights I was able to get from them on our customer, and who our customer is, what they're like, completely blew me away and gave me so much more to work with in terms of really understanding who I'm speaking to on this online channel. And even though CRM typically sits with marketing, I found that the whole company had something to say. Everybody had either met our customers or had gotten to know online things that our customers have said, and there's so many different people in the company that you can speak to, so retail was definitely one of them. The second biggest assist that I had was customer service. Actually, probably the best assist, not the second. Customer service was able to tell me so much about what I was doing and how our customers were reacting. Because all I would see is numbers. I would send out an email and I'd see the revenues go up and I'd be like, this campaign is amazing. I'm doing so well. And then customer service would come to me and say, this is glitching, or people are annoyed because you just emailed them a couple days ago about this. And they'd give me the actual feedback about how our customers are responding. I found customer service to be hugely central to retaining customers. It sounds quite obvious, but sometimes in marketing you forget about that. And customer service was able to even feed into the product and saying, you know what, a lot of people are complaining that this size is wrong or there's something wrong with this. And your product is also an excellent way to retain your customers, the quality of your product. So that feedback really allows people to come back. It's not necessarily just how you speak to them and how you market to them. It's every part of the company needs to interact with the company in a way that gives a strength to the brand and to your relationship with your customers. So it sort of sits in multiple teams, and there's someone who owns it from a marketing perspective, but it takes a village.
Okay, and Alex, I guess selling furniture, big ticket items, right? Yeah. There's a challenge there to getting people to buy either a second piece of furniture or a different piece of furniture. So for you, you know, how does retention, what does it look like? I mean, do you have a big focus on trying to turn your first-time customers to make a second purchase, or is it equally or more than about getting lapsed customers to come back to you who've not shopped for a while, or is it a mixture of all of those things?
Yeah, well, when I started at VOGA, we basically just did twice a week promo blasts through MailChimp. So it was very difficult to get any type of data whatsoever. Since then, the shift has really been on to customers as well. So, you know, Gregor mentioned before about finding out, you know, who they are and what they do. We've been taking a lot of our GA data, customer survey information, and also sort of inputting Forrester data as well, and just trying to build that profile and actually just making up names about people, you know, what their interests are. We found that most people actually quite like gardening and automotive categories. So, you know, it's quite strange. So now when we do our emails, we try to include like different events or, you know, country-specific information that is going to be relevant for that person. Obviously, it doesn't always work, but we do have quite a difficult cycle with, you know, a long purchase lead time. So we try different things. We see how it works. We're still struggling to try and get a full picture information, but, you know, we'll get there eventually. One thing that is quite cool that we're starting to do now is take our lapsed customers, and for us, a lapsed customer is someone who never opens an email, just isn't interested whatsoever. And inputting that into Facebook and trying to remarket to them through there. So that's this week's campaign, and we're going to see how it goes.
And how do you actually input that into Facebook? I mean, how does that connection work?
Yeah, so we just run the segment. So we work with .mailer at the minute. We pull that segment of people that have never engaged, never clicked on email, never opened, upload it as a custom audience into Facebook, and then we can, you know, we can either serve them a promo message or, you know, just, it's been a while since you visited us. So we're going to try that, and I'm actually really excited about it for this week. Okay,
thank you, Alex. Now, Gregor, we've talked a bit about promos, and obviously there's a big danger, isn't there, of too much promo noise. And we found that with some retailers. I mean, it's very tempting, you know, especially as a marketer, you want to get a good response to your email campaign. You shove a promo in there and a discount or whatever, and hey presto, everyone's buying stuff, but actually you're not making any money. So, you know, were you conscious of you know, being very judicious about the amount of promos you were running? And I know you target them at lapsed, and you had a whole process, but could you just talk a bit more about your attitude towards promos and discounts and coupons and so on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're predominantly an online brand, so I think promos to stimulate sales are always going to be a challenge. You're kind of having to work that channel quite a lot, and we are conscious of it. I think where we're trying to go with it is if we bring the customer into the equation who's always in the room, and marketing aligned to this customer and product aligned to this customer, and we do a good launch of a product that the customer wants and is marketed to that specific customer so it makes sense to them. I think that's kind of where we're heading, so that we actually don't need to promote our products as hard. They actually, when they land and we launch them, it's kind of what the customer wants. So they sell at full price. We don't have to rely on discounting. So that's our kind of long-term strategy to avoid promos. But I think it's always a challenge driving a direct channel, and I think it is part of these triggered emails to stimulate this customer, George, or whoever who's leaving the business. I think the odd promo, if he hasn't purchased in 12 months, is is maybe what it takes to get them across the line again. So I think it's a challenge, it's a balance, but we're actually trying to play the long game in giving them what they want, and so that they buy it at full price.
Okay. One more question before I open it up. It's really about timing and the importance in timing, and how you kind of individually in your businesses or your past businesses have kind of worked out what is the right time. For instance, you know, turning your first-time customer into your second-time customer to become a loyal customer. That's a key challenge of every retailer. Once you've spent the money and done all the hard work to acquire your customer, you know, okay, so they sign up to newsletter, you send them newsletter, but at what time, what point would you know, try and sort of push them back in if they haven't purchased for a certain period? I know the concept of active customer will change for every retailer, but I'd just like to hear from you. Perhaps start with Nicola about how you looked at that.
Well, I think obviously we've talked about knowing your the cycle of when people purchase, so the purchase patterns of your customers, which then dictates how often you can expect them to be purchasing again. We worked out the point of lapse for our customers, and on the point of lapse, we would then send them either a direct mail piece or an email. That's essentially how we did it.
Okay. And Gregor?
I think you helped with that, James.
Yeah, well, okay. Planted question. No, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, we looked at our buying data alongside these guys and built the timings in line with that. I mean, we're going back to this age we're in right now. We're sitting on data to make your business better, which is an awesome thing. So we, rather than our gut feel, we look at the actual information and run it that way. Okay, and actually, and to Katie, sort of beyond that question also, how important is let's say the follow-up? So you might send them an email at the time you determine, you don't get a reaction. Do you bug them? Do you keep pushing that, repeat? Do you send them that kind of incentive or that email again as a repeat? And how would you kind of work on do that?
So one thing that is kind of remarkable is that with all of the technology out there and all of our knowledge on all of this, one thing that was always a big challenge for me at Oliver Brown was the idea of an effective preference center. The idea of knowing, of just customers will be willing to tell you maybe at the checkout, when would you want to buy our product again? And just having that data can be so powerful, because I was speaking to a coffee capsule company the other day, and they said it's so hard for us because some people consume 10 cups in a week. Some people have one occasionally. Some people are buying for an entire household, so it goes quite quickly. So to be able to find out when they might repurchase is a nightmare when you're just looking at the data, but simply asking them at checkout could really help you power your automation in a way that you're not really bothering them and you're being more effective. Second to that, on the point of follow-up. So I always find it so remarkable when I go into companies and I run a campaign with their database, and usually I do a launch, a reminder, and a last chance, similar to like any sale that you see. And the reason for that is, and I try to stress that it's for really important campaigns. I mean, you don't want to show the same product 3 times, but if you have an important message, follow up on it, because I don't know if you're the same as I am, but I often will open up an email, click through, see something I absolutely love, want to buy, get busy, completely forget about it. Find out it's sold out or think about it months down the road. But if they were to follow up with me, I'd be very happy that they reminded me. And it's finding the balance between badgering someone consistently and spamming them and gentle reminders on what they saw, which is why browser abandons, basket abandons are quite effective, because people, it's reminding them that this is something that you are interested in. If the message is important enough to you and you think that this is something that's really going to do well and you want to tell your customers about it, don't be afraid to, instead of coming up with a new thing to talk about the following week, send them an email phrased differently about the same content to remind them. People who didn't open it before might open it. People who opened it before might look at it from a different angle and realize, hey, I did like that. And that actually really increases your conversion on whatever it is that you're marketing substantially.
Okay, and lastly, Alex, I guess timings look slightly different for you guys because you have a different life cycle and stage of customers. So, what sort of analysis do you do and how do you do it?
That's also a really tricky one because, as you said, one of our problems is our products are made to order. So if someone purchases something, there could be a lead time of up to 14 weeks. Occasionally that gets delayed as well, so even up to 20. So we have to really manage this quite carefully, and there's a lot of discussion between ourselves and customer service, and also our back office support around when products are actually going to be delivered, and how that then actually does feed into our marketing strategy. So we suppress people who have maybe ordered but are delayed, and we try and take them out of that mix, because the last thing someone wants is to be have an email thrown in their face saying, here's a product, buy it again, and they're still waiting and they've been delayed. So we have to tread really quite carefully. So that's one thing that's really important to us, to try and keep the dialogue within the company about where things are up to.
Okay, cool. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning, actually, is we did ask for questions, and we got a few questions in. Some of the points have been covered here already, but one question that somebody asked we haven't addressed yet, which was, email is an obvious retention channel to help with retention, as is, we've discussed, direct mail is a great avenue. Are there any other channels any of you would like to talk about that you've had experience of, other than email and direct mail, that has worked in a sort of retention, for kind of boosting retention or winning customers back? Anyone like to go?
Yeah, I can go. So for us, being a furniture company, lifestyle imagery and inspirational images are really, really important. And with that, social works really well. So our Instagram following has become enormous. We started maybe in September last year with about 70 followers, and now we're up to over 13,000. And we do see, there's a lot of repeat engagement on those images that we post. People really like the lifestyle aspect of it. They really like the inspirational Eames chair next to a beautiful white wooden floored house. Like, it's stunning. So we try and bring those Instagram images through our emails as well, to try and drive, if someone doesn't want to really read the email that much, but they do engage with Instagram. So we try and pull them through that way to just, emails, it's difficult for us to always have people opening and reading. So they do actually go back time and time again through social for us.
Thanks, Alex. When we do a direct mail blast, which we do actually segment and offer tailored promotions depending on where the customer is in those segments, and we'd also be interested in the API you guys are developing, but that's a separate thing. We follow it up with retargeting, and we find that to drive up the conversion rate of that direct mail. So when a brochure lands, we'll go quite hard and fast on the retargeting for the duration of those codes when the brochure is out, and we've seen good success with that. It's always a bit tricky because there's the post-view revenue that you see, and there's the post-click revenue you see, and it's
smoke and mirrors, right?
Pardon?
Smoke and mirrors sometimes.
Smoke and mirrors, yeah, dark art, that kind of thing. And so we've been trying to get a robust methodology in place to kind of try and accurately say the post view has added to it, but it's always tough. But we've seen turning that activity on alongside a brochure to improve the overall performance of a direct mail shot.
Okay. Would anybody like to start asking some questions from the audience of any of the panelists? Any burning questions? There's one over there. Yeah.
That within season, if our rate of sale on a category is slow and we're looking like being overstocked at more than we want at the end, we have done blasts around a category within season, but it's just the resources to it sounds simple, but to build that campaign, but that's like, it's half a day on that category. Is that worth doing it? And what's the pool of people who've, say, bought that category before, and just tallying that up to make it worthwhile? But we do bits of it.
I heard half the question, so I think I have the topic we're talking about. It's merchandising products that should be reserved for sale, and using that to get people to repeat buy. Was that it?
Yeah, depending on your merchandising, what's available, what margins you've got and all the rest of it?
Yes, you do. I think it's difficult. It depends on the brand, but some companies might find that what they have left over is product that they had high returns on. So there might be something that's not great about it, or it just didn't sell well because people don't really like it. And there's a danger in trying to acquire customers by pushing promotions on products like this, because if that's their first experience of your product, and it's not the best that you have to offer, the chance that they might come back might be lessened. So you do need to work with stock management to make sure that that you're producing the right amount and selling the right amount, and it's always going to be a challenge. But it's difficult if you start working that into a strategy and making that your standard, that you can always rely on discounting to get rid of excess stock. You can put yourself into a bit of a dangerous situation where people don't want to buy full price anymore. They're used to promotions, or they're buying stock that nobody else really wants, so they're not as in love with your brand as people are buying the best things.
Thanks. Questions? Oh, Jay, over there. Best triggers on promos. Yeah. What's the magic sauce? Yeah. What's one's works best for you guys? Money off.
The biggest discount works best, but
biggest discount works best. Yeah.
Works best, yeah. But to the point on the book Contagious, I just read it recently, and I mean it sounds simple enough, but there's a part that discusses that there are two different stores that are selling barbecues, and one of them discounts the barbecue, the exact same barbecue, from 350 pounds to 200 pounds. The other store discounts it from 250 pounds to 200 pounds. And everybody's going wild for the same barbecue that was discounted much, much more. A lot about marketing to customers is smoke and mirrors. How big of a deal do they think that they're getting? And I've typically worked in premium to luxury fashion, and that's been quite difficult because you have to maintain the value of your brand, and sometimes that's more important than making the sale. So it's also the way that you word things. I've seen email blasts go out that are really decorative, that 50% off everything, that have performed poorly, and then a simple note from customer service saying, we really appreciate you as a customer. I'd like to offer you free delivery for this weekend. We'll give you more sales because of the level of personalization and that nice touch. People tend to be very blinded to this marketing bells and whistles, and ultimately, the more personalized you can get in speaking to your database, that's why we talk about segments and when is the right time to talk to them. The more personalized you can be, the better your sales will be. And sometimes that actually supersedes how big the discount is or what the promotion is.
Just a point on discounts and being personalized discounts. One thing you have to be slightly careful about, especially with the word of mouth, is if you are testing different discounts with different people and they start talking. We used to have situations where we might test a 10 or a 15%, and then people would come into store and go, but I've got 10%, or my neighbor got this, or whatever. So you want to be targeted, you want to be personal, but also be careful of the word of mouth.
So obviously, it's, discount is really appealing, but we found that there is a ceiling on that discount that becomes not appealing anymore because people think it's ridiculous. So we're active in 9 different territories, quite a lot of Scandinavia and Europe. So one of our biggest markets is Germany, and Germans hate really high discounts because they don't think it's real. So also bear that in mind. So test, whether if you are going to do a specific sale category that is, for example, we went up to 80% for Germans, and it was only 1 or 2 products, but they just hated it. So bear that in mind as well.
Thanks. Further questions, Ivan? Sorry? You can sneak a question, then Abby after.
I just figured this is a great learning opportunity, and I'd love to ask each one of you, in terms of data-driven marketing, what is the #1 challenge that you see right now? What's something that you're struggling with right now with a company that you're with or that you've worked with? What's the one thing that sort of springs to mind straight away for each one of you?
I'd say the biggest challenge that I've always had is custom fields. and not having to do the VLOOKUPs. Just being able
It's one
to...
for Al.
One thing that was really effective is we had a sale and we were down to sort of like last chance. And I think we were getting a lot of feedback from customers saying, there's nothing in my size, like in anything that I want. And the way that our website was built at that time, we didn't have a filter to your size. You sort of had to click. It was an old website. You had to click through and try to find and see if each product had your size. So it was a nightmare to do, but what I ended up doing was exporting data from our CRM system to find out what was the most recent size purchased by our customers, excluding all of the customers who had already purchased in the sale, and sent them a targeted last chance with a call to action saying, here are all the products that are in a size 32 that we have left in the sale. And I think that if I had a system where I could just say custom field and I want to know what was the last product purchase, what was when, let's say we capture their birthday but we haven't used it. I want to just be able to add that in. And every company I've ever spoken to has different needs, and it's hard to capture the types of segments that you would want for every company. So being able to reach into something that is personal for their database makes sense.
Alex?
For us right now, it's still the cross-device element. So you can send someone who's been browsing on desktop an abandoned basket, and because they're not logged in, they get it on their mobile, and they don't necessarily see the product that they were looking at. They just go to just either the homepage or even a 404, which is potentially even worse. So that's something that we're finding quite a challenge, because also people don't want to log in when they're looking at furniture. They just want to browse. So I know tools are getting better, and it will. The tool that we use, Dotmailer, is not possible to do that currently, but they're saying it's going to be ready in August. So I'm hopeful still. But yeah, cross-device for us is still a massive, massive issue.
Yeah, I think for us at the moment, we've lowered the churn rate with our retention model that we went over earlier, and we're on this sort of big new customer acquisition push at the moment. And being able to take, say, our top customers that we now know and have a relationship with and know who they are and why they buy from us, and being able to, almost like you would in direct mail, kind of buy in lists around a profiled consumer, being able to do that online through, say, retargeting ads, but the prospecting version, and being able to because we have strong visuals, being able to show those visuals online to a profiled consumer that matches our consumer we now know so well that we've currently got. That's something we're really looking quite a lot into at the moment. And with the post-view kind of thing, there's difficulties around the accuracy around reporting of that. So that's a sort of sub-issue within that. But we're really looking at new customer acquisition channels online and getting our heads into that.
I think for Sweaty Betty, the biggest challenge was bringing in the data from all the different areas. Being multi-channel, you've got the retail, the online, the catalogue, bringing activity from the website, all that together, and having a single view of the customer, which we did have, but then using that single view for outputs into whatever marketing activity you wanted to do. That is the biggest challenge for them at the moment.
Okay, we got a quick question from Abby, I think, yeah.
Thanks. Just briefly, can I ask about onboarding, and if you have any particular successful experiences of onboarding campaigns, and what kind of frequency and number of onboarding emails that you find work best?
Can I just clarify what you mean by onboarding? You mean so
when you've acquired a customer's email address, they haven't yet purchased, and you're trying to convert them.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So yeah. So we define that as it's turning prospects into new customers. We've just recently we've started to, once you sign up with us, whether if you sign up as a customer, you get a series of emails. If you sign up as a non-customer, you get a series of emails. And as a non-customer new email address, it's a sort of a brand welcome email with £10 off your first purchase to try and get them across the line. And they also, going back to the warm and cold strategy of our main blasts, until that prospect buys, they are in this cold list. So they only receive, we're testing the frequency at the moment and testing engagement and testing content. But they only receive one email currently, and it is, the purpose of that email is to kind of educate on the brand and try and get them across the line. So we're tailoring our message to those cold customers, we define them. If they buy, they go up into the warm list, which gets more regular communication.
So I find it very strange when I speak to companies and I ask to see their onboarding program, and they're like, "Oh, we haven't updated it in a while." It's just, we'll get to that. We'll get to that, because they're too busy trying to turn over their weekly emails. But that's crazy, because the number one most received email that is sent is your welcome program, your onboarding program. Your weekly emails are sent in a week, 1 week, and gone the next. And it's really important that it's something that you consistently measure and go back to, because it's how people are introduced to your company. And when someone first signs up to hear from you, you have this beautiful grace period where you can hammer them with emails and they're not sick of you yet. And the way that you should do it is by managing their expectations so they don't think that this is going to happen all the time, but a simple 1 of 3, like explain to them this is the first of 3. And you can email them every single day, because they know that this is only 2 of 3 and 3 of 3. And that frequency, because they're most highly engaged with you when they first sign up, after that there's a chance that they might fade out. That's where you try to grab them. And sometimes it's best to save the offer until the 3 of 3. So, and have the condition on that be, they did not purchase off 1, they did not purchase off 2, so on 3, give them an offer. And secondly, a really big thing is understanding the source of where you acquire that data and being personal to them based on that. When you welcome them to your company, it's because, thank you for signing up at our event. Thank you for entering this competition. Glad you liked our Facebook ad. I don't know, just some sort of thing that really speaks to them, and it's going back to that personalization and saying, we know where you came from and we're really happy you're here.
Okay. Well, you're probably all looking forward to a bit of lunch if you can stay. I've got one final question, actually, which is a very quick one. I don't know if you can answer it just very, very briefly. Are any of you, or if there's, let's say, if there's one metric that you're looking at or following on a daily or a weekly basis that is relevant to what we're talking about, customer retention, what is that metric? And I don't know, how's it calculated? What are you looking at if you're watching that closely? Nicola?
So we would probably look at, is that working? Our most active customers, and we would look at their retention rate in that time period. So we would probably look at it in a 6-month period, because we had 2 main seasons. So that was the one key one. We wouldn't look at the whole database at all. It would just be your active. That would be the one, and then you'd go down into the others.
Yeah, pretty similar to that. Our active customer base, so a rolling number of customers who shopped in the last 12 months, which takes, going back to that churn and new customers moving into this customer base. So we're our eyes are on that, and we want to see that go up.
That's actually a tricky one, because I've spoken with B2B companies, B2C companies, and retail and tech, and with different types of products, and every single one of them at each stage of their business, they might be new, they might have been around for a few years. It depends on the stage of the business in terms of what's important to you at that time, but I do agree that looking at your active customer segment is important. When you're just starting out as a company, it's a little bit harder to understand what your base metrics are and if that's a healthy number. But for a company that's more established, that makes sense.
I feel bad saying it, but the only one that counts for us internally to go up to the board and the CEO is revenue. Just what it is. Obviously, I look at other things like average order value, new versus returning, repeat users, engagers, but the only one that counts is revenue.